Hi, everyone. If you are still here today and listening to our podcast, I thank you so much. Welcome to another episode of the Truth We Hide podcast. I am so excited to continue to bring you new guests and new topics and just share people's lives with you. Today's guest is William York. He is the founder of the Joshua York Legacy Foundation. Be prepared. This topic is just hits so close to home personally for me, but William created this foundation to honor his son that he actually lost to suicide. So please take a listen to his story. Let me know what you think. Let me know how you think you can help. Go follow his page. Just do something for someone else and just be there to listen. So take a listen to his story. Good morning, Billy York. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. I am really honored to have you on here today. Your story is touching. It's amazing, and I'm truly honored that you are wanting to share it here with all of us. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, everything.
Okay. So let's see. I am a retired lieutenant colonel from the U.S. Air Force. Spent 20 years, a little over 20 years active duty, 30 years total. So I did some time in the Guard and Air National Guard and Reserves. Started as a lowest ranking E1 and ended up as a O5 through luck of my career.
That's
Um,
incredible.
I'm a Gulf War veteran from the first Gulf War. Uh, Diagnosed with PTSD through my service, both as a criminal investigator and in the war. Um, Untreated until 2003. So, I haven't had my own struggles in life, trying to figure out when and where and why to go to counseling. But I was fortunate to have the right support when those times came and got the counseling that I needed. I have 5 children, 2 from my first marriage, which was my oldest daughter and my son Joshua. And then I have 2 girls from my current marriage and a son who we adopted. He's a relative, but we've had him since he was 18 months to keep him out of foster care. So sort of a very large spread out family. But, I think that's, in my case, I think that's what makes life worth living is, having those children to raise and, have for the future. Unfortunately for my family, in July 2018, my 20-year-old son Joshua took his own life, and it's since put myself and my family on a whole different trajectory in life, one that we did not anticipate uh, or really wanted to embrace in any way, but just one that we felt a calling to, and that was to create a foundation in his name to try to raise awareness for suicide prevention and to hopefully help prevent other families from experiencing the same loss that we did.
Oh my gosh. First off, I'm very sorry about your son. Um, I am grateful that you did create this foundation in memory of him because I know that this is something that's needed. And I have seen, well, just last year we had, or my son, his high school had a girl commit suicide. She was only 16. And, all over Facebook posts, the neighborhood Facebook page, they were talking about how she was so happy, she was so outgoing, and she played in the school band, and just all these happy things that makes you think, gosh, what we just don't know what kids are going through. So I think this is a touchy subject. So I'm trying to. Did you see any signs? Did you have any idea? I just I know it's not easy for us to do that, especially for my own son when he gets depressed. I sometimes I just don't know, so I have to make him talk about it, but it's not that easy. So how
And so the first thing I would tell you is, um, I made a decision shortly after burying my son that if I was going to go down this path, that I would have to be as open and honest as possible. So there's no question you can't ask me. There's only one thing that I won't talk about, and that's the method of his suicide. Um,
Mhm.
Everything else, including my own history, is an open book, and I say that because I had to make a decision, in for myself in life. I realized very early on that I had a choice. I could either um, curl up in the ball that I did when the police left my house on the morning that they told us, and uh, completely lose myself, which obviously I did for a period of time, trying just to process what they had told me, or I could figure out a way to move forward. And I chose that, there's only one way in life in my book, and that's to move forward. I can't dwell on the past. I can't, very long, not that I don't miss it, my son, or revisit those things, but, um, when I'm there, there's only one way for me, and that's forward. So there's no question you can't ask me. Um, as one other thing before I'll put out there now before we get into talking about him is, my first wife, my ex-wife, was not able to do that. She was a social worker, had all the tools available to her, and just could not get out of the grief cycle. And on January 6, 2019, roughly 6 months, 5, 6 months after he took his life, she took hers. So in 6 month period, we experienced a double trauma in our family. And one of the challenges there is that my firstborn, my oldest daughter, uh, had found out she was pregnant after we lost our son, and so she was left not only having lost her brother, who was her rock, but also her mother, and it, from that original, bloodline, I guess, is a marriage. She's the only one left besides myself. So, um, it impacted her even more so than me because she had so many more questions, being pregnant. And so, while all this is going on, we have fought really hard to get to a place on a personal note, but at the same time recognizing that we have a purpose that's greater than ourselves. So, um, you know, ask any question. So, my son, um, my son was he was gay. He's part of the LGBTQ community. Um, he never, really came out to us until he, formally, until he graduated high school and was heading off to college. But he really didn't have to because, as he realized who he was, he did not. Um, he stopped bringing kids around. He stopped uh, interacting with as many people publicly, and my wife knew, my ex-wife knew. I guess I tried to be oblivious and just treat him as I would treat anybody, and that is to just accept him for who he was each and every day as best I could, as being a parent. I never went out and said, "Hey, are you gay?" or "Hey, are you not gay?" It was just the relationship I had with him was just that way. I felt that if and when it was time, he would tell me. Unfortunately, when he turned 16, started dating because he had his license. One night he was spending the weekend over a friend's house with a bunch of other kids, and He chose to use a dating app and to meet somebody, and unfortunately, he was raped by that individual. And that was just as he was starting, or right before he was starting his senior year in high school. So, obviously, having been raped and being called by someone else to be informed of that, and then trying to get him to a hospital to be properly treated. Um, you know, there was no question at that point as to whether he was gay or not, because he, was out to try to meet another male individual to keep. He didn't want to have those issues in school. So, um, we took care of him. He refused to prosecute and did not want to go to counseling. We kept an eye on him constantly. And it was a rough year for him, but he made it through, graduated, got accepted to James Madison University in Virginia on a scholarship and my VA benefits, and off to college he went. When he went to his first semester, being away from home, in a small rural town versus the suburbs of Baltimore, he started to become suicidal, and one day checked himself into the school clinic, which shipped him off to an emergency room until they got him counseling. So, we went through that. We got him counseling specifically for someone in the LGBT community. And he, got out of that funk. When he started his second semester, he decided to pretty much to stop the counseling, but he was taking a class which caused him to write a paper about himself. He wrote it about his rape, and ended up starting to become an advocate on campus for others. People, once he told his story, because they had to read out in the class, the people came up to him and said, you're so brave, thank you for sharing. I had this happen to me, girls and boys. So he started having a sense that he wasn't alone, and he seemed to be doing well. He had also met his partner, Joshua, who's a co-founder of the foundation. And they, when the summer came, I just, hadn't heard anything from him. He was up for the weekend. And I said, so, what you going to do? Are you going to live with your mother? Going to live with me? You going to go back and forth like you've been doing? Or, you got some other plans, because you haven't really said anything. And he was relieved that we asked, and he told us that he was thinking about moving in with his partner for the summer and considering transferring to the University of Maryland, where he originally wanted to go anyway. And, my response was, Josh, this is the time of your life to do it. You're in college, you got no job, you got no responsibilities other than when school's in session. This is the one time in your life that you can travel, and you figure out exactly who and what you are and want to be, and what you like and don't like, those type of things. And this is the time to do it. This is your, that core part of your life. And so he moved in with his partner. He transferred to University of Maryland. Again, he was on the dean's list. He had, within 2 or 3 weeks after his first year of college, he went and got his real estate license and started working on building a real estate portfolio business to, for himself. He was doing great. Went to University of Maryland, dean's list. Him and his partner buy a house together in the spring of 2018. And then, summer comes and things are going good. He sells his first house. And 3 weeks after he sold his first house, he took his life. Yeah, we didn't see the signs. And I have been trained in, suicide prevention through the military every year consistently for 30 years. And I was a federal criminal law enforcement officer for the Air Force for 8 of those 30 years and had, been through crime scene processing and analysis, and, I did not see the signs. So it caught us completely off guard.
Oh my gosh. I am just, I'm speechless. I'm so sorry.
Well, I
It,
appreciate that. I do. There's a picture out on our website, um, of him in front of one of the Colette Miller angel wings from her Global Wing Project. Have you ever heard of her?
no, I have not.
She's all over the world. She's an artist, and she goes around cities and paints angel wings on walls so that people can take their picture in front of them. And
Oh, I have seen those all over social media. Yes, go ahead.
he was in D.C. They lived right outside of D.C. They were in D.C. Embassy Row area. There's a set of her wings down in D.C. And they were on their way to get a haircut. Passed by these and decided that they would come back after their haircut and take a picture. And that was one of the last pictures we have of him. And that's it's not a prop. It's not something we put together. It's one of the last actual pictures we have of him before he passed. So it's just one of those things. It's amazing to me. All my life I have not been an overly religious person in the sense of the structured religion. I've always had my personal beliefs, but I've always struggled with structured religion. And here is this picture of him in front of the angel wings. And as my sisters are going through the hundreds and hundreds of pictures that I have of him, most of them digital, they find a picture of him when he was probably 8 to 10 years, maybe 11 years old, swimming in the pool. And we had just come back from Disney World where we had bought some underwater pictures, and him and his sister were taking pictures of each other. And there's a picture of him blowing out bubbles. And when she found this picture, she's like, "Bill, you got to come in here. Look at this. You got to come in here." So I get up and go in. I'm like, "What?" And she says, "Look at this picture. What do you see?" And it's pretty evident that this picture looks like a praying angel coming out of his mouth.
Oh my gosh.
So, for me, there was this awakening, again, not from a classical church-going perspective, but just a awakening of what I feel is a path that I was put on. And so I'm following it, and, I've had, sort of visions that said, follow the path that I'm putting in front of you, and people will follow, and get the message. So that's what I do. Most of the things that we have promulgated out there, I feel like were placed in our lap to do something with. It's not something that we sat around for days, weeks, hours, whatever, and dreamt up ourselves. It's complete. I feel like it's completely opposite of that, and most people that are familiar with the internal workings of our foundation, feel that same way.
That's incredible. This picture is beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
It is, yeah, that is an absolutely beautiful picture. He's such a handsome young man. Um, I see that your website is amazing. There's so many different ways to give back, and I love that. I see these rocks, the suicide prevention rocks.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there's a Facebook page for that, correct? Or Instagram page?
There's both. So
There's
we do have an Instagram out there for the foundation,
mhm,
and we do have a Facebook group and a
mhm,
page. So the page is sort of like where we put out information that is non-specific to rock painting.
mhm.
And then the group is actually where we put out everything that is related to rock painting, which art is therapy. So this suicide prevention rocks, it's a double entendre. You know, it's rock because we're helping people, but it's physically the rocks also. And we view that as our art therapy program because those painting rocks, they're when you're putting something out in art, generally, you're putting emotion into it, so it's therapeutic. I've paint them myself. My whole family, in fact, paints them. Uh, uh, but when you put them out there, um, it's also helpful to someone who finds it. Most rocks are placed somewhere on the ground, so folks who are depressed or looking into themselves are typically looking at the ground versus looking into the eyes of those that they pass. So we have plenty of stories where someone's in a bad place or walking somewhere and they're looking down, or they sit down on a park bench, and they spot these rocks, and people put all kind of stuff on them. I mean, some of the artists that are out there are just amazing. uh,
Yes.
but positive comments, you're loved, you know sayings. One of my favorite um, is that when you're in a bad place, and I'll paraphrase it because I don't have it in front of me, but you know when you can't make it through the dark yourself, I'll sit under a tree with you until you're ready to go back in the light, basically.
That's
And
beautiful.
just all different kind of saying,
Hmm.
heartbeat, semicolon, all kind of things get painted on these rocks and placed out there, and it happens every day. And we started that. The story behind that's actually 9 months before he passed. My wife and I and our three younger children were in Ocean City, Maryland, and there's an art league down there, and they, all summer long they do, all year long they do different art sessions that are, fairly inexpensive for people to experience art. And so, one day we were looking for something to do, and we went and joined this class, and it was a Kindness Rocks um, painting group. And we sat there with these people and learned about the Kindness Rocks project. So um, we, at Christmas time, bought a rock painting kit for the kids, and then it sat on a shelf, and after my son took his life, my younger children were shutting down emotionally, and my wife took, and my wife Dawn, she started looking up exercises to get the children speaking. And so we did stuff like lighting candles and talking about what we loved and missed about Josh, and we put rocks in a vase and um, talked about you know our own personal feelings, what we were going to miss, and how we were in pain. And one of the other exercises was we pulled out this rock kit to do. We started out painting kindness rocks, and as we sat there, and everybody's like, I don't know what to paint, and they were like, well, somebody in there was like, probably my wife was like, well, paint something for suicide prevention. So we paint these rocks and we put them out in our community, took pictures of them, and uh, my wife Dawn was saying, yeah, we ought to put these on our foundation Facebook page. And I was like, it's not really the message we want, because at that time we didn't really have a concept of it. And I said, but we could make a group or something. And she's like, why don't you do that? And I said, okay. So I jumped up. 10 minutes later, we had talked about the name and stuff. But 10 minutes later, Suicide Prevention Rocks was up on Facebook as a group, and within the first week, we had about 250 people join it. Most of them family, and that was cool. That people were gonna to look at this, and people were saying, "Oh, that's neat." And a couple weeks later, we were a few hundred more people, and something clicked in my head. I'm an accountant by trade, so it was all about the numbers for me. So I was like, I wonder how many rock groups are out there. I wonder how many rock groups are out there painting for suicide prevention, and that launched this research project that I continue to do to this day. I have uh, collected the group names of over 8,000 um, Facebook pages and groups that paint rocks.
Wow.
Most of those are some form of the Kindness Rock Project or a breakaway from that Rocks Project, meaning they're unaffiliated, but they're still doing the same thing. And out of all those 8,000 plus groups, I have only found about a dozen that paint specifically and only for suicide prevention. Um, most all but ours is specific to um, a individual that was lost, as opposed to, you know, although they do, try to advocate awareness.
Hmm.
Again, it's one of those things that was just kind of given to us. Suicide prevention rocks, the double entendre. It's not something that we spent a lot of time dreaming up, but it is something that has taken off. That group. When I look at those other groups, most of them have been around as long or longer as us, and um, those groups for suicide prevention are generally less than 1,000 people,
Hmm.
and we've been up for since September 4th, 2018. It's now the end of February 2020, so it's about 18 months, and we probably today or tomorrow will hit 27,000 members,
That's amazing.
and that's amazing in itself. We add about 100 people a day, but what amazes me the most is, where would you think those people are from, right? Where would you think they were from?
Well, I would think in the media area, but I'm
Right.
thinking that.
Yeah, I mean, most people would think, oh, you got a group, it's local. Oh, you're in the U.S., it's U.S. It is. I mean, the majority of our members, probably at this time, 24,000, are U.S. citizens, but they're in every single state of the United States and 98 foreign countries on all six populated continents.
Oh my goodness.
And it grows by 100 people a day. So, we ended January with 95 countries, I believe it was. Uh, as of last night, we're at 99, including the U.S. Um, so, 99 countries. I believe that's exactly one half of all the countries in the world, because if I'm not mistaken, there's 198 countries in the world, and we have 99. So, uh,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
That's absolutely amazing. I love how this has touched all those people in any kind of way, some sort of way. They're being touched, and these rocks, you're right. I've read the comments on the Facebook page, and they are literally put there right at the time someone needed to read it.
Yeah.
They have saved so many people from that dark place, and it's just amazing what a rock can do, because these rocks, like you said, they're phenomenal. There's artists on here that are like, wow. I mean, they put me to shame because there's no way. But
Yeah, I know. Same here.
but just the fact that, there's phone numbers on here for uh the crisis hotline, and just always bring your own sunshine, and just everything and anything, and they're so beautiful. And I've thought about, well, ever since your page, actually, I thought about it, and I was thinking, I think there was people on there, where do you get your rocks? What kind of colors do you use? What kind of paint? What kind of this? It got all technical. I got overwhelmed. But I'm like,
Right.
I just need to get a rock and just paint it, because it was so, I mean, they're real.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of people just come to our site now to find positive message to paint them for themselves,
Yes.
to see the artwork. We get messages all the time that, I can't paint like this, but it's the first website I look in the morning because there's always something positive on it. So, it's really, again, we did not envision this. This was not something that we specifically said, hey, this is what we're going to do.
Right.
So that's part of the amazing story of this, is that, it's we're impacting literally thousands of people around the world every day.
Yes.
And, it, for me, it was, for lack of a better term, heaven sent. Everybody has their own belief in the form of their God, but, the majority of people around the world have some belief in some God. And
Right.
so for me, to me, it comes from God. Whoever's God it is, it's coming to me. So I'm going to keep
Right.
following the path until I'm told to stop walking it.
No, you're absolutely right. You definitely are. You've been given a gift to keep on going and to help so many people. And I, gosh, to be honest, there are days, I still have my days, and I am a suicide attempt survivor, and I look at this page and I'm literally in tears because it's it's amazing the work that you're doing. And for anybody listening, there's so many ways to donate. There's so many ways to help out. You need to go on their Facebook page. You need to make those rocks and put them out for people because you don't know who's going to stumble upon them. You just don't know what people are going through. And I know for me, I've been in contact with Josh to find out ways to volunteer, and because this is such it hits so close to home. And I've had soldiers who committed suicide. We've had family members, we've had best friends, and it's just, but for to get up and to keep going the next day, that's hard. Um, but I'm so glad that you've been blessed to do this for Josh and for everybody else out there that's suffering and that needs to hear the story.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. I do feel blessed. In fact, I tell people all the time, this has been as healing, if not more, for myself, than I would have ever expected. Having just putting my kids' paint rocks up on a Facebook, right? Here I am just trying to share how we're helping our kids, and the next thing I know, um, people are painting rocks everywhere. And last year, September 10th of every year is International Suicide Prevention Day. Last year, we were blessed to have a person from Arkansas, Susie Reynolds Reese, who has been also touched by suicide in her life, um, and she is a advocate for suicide prevention in Arkansas. Amazing, amazing lady. She has become one of our speakers that we can coordinate really to have her present. Um, she has an amazing depth of knowledge, and we had her come up and last July and look at what we were doing and just give us some feedback from an outsider.
mm,
And I'll never forget it because while we were going over her report, she said, in these rocks, it's funny because the rocks has been my thing. Once I guess I'm OCD on that or something, but uh, I started realizing that this was catching on, and so it's just fascinated me, and I put a lot of time into this group, and Josh, Josh Cretion, my son's partner, who's the co-founder I was talking about.
mhm.
He's always looked at it and been like, what's up with these rocks? I don't get it. But he's the one that builds our websites, and he's the website designer. So, he's trying to figure it out, for the first 6 or 8 or 9 months, and then while she's standing there, she's saying, "This is like your thing. You should really put some thought into this." And so she helped us, recommended to us, what do you do? Are you going to do anything for International Suicide Prevention Day? And she said, maybe you could, rock the world with it. And we were like, what? What'd you just say? And she's
Rock
like,
the
why don't you
world.
try to get everybody to drop a rock, for suicide prevention? And so like the same day we started that she said that, we started this effort to rock the world for suicide prevention, with on September 10th, International Suicide Prevention Day. So again, it's my OCD. So I'm out there reaching out to hundreds of groups worldwide. Ultimately, we had just over 500 groups um, around the world uh, paint, and their members helped us paint rocks, and they put them in their communities for suicide prevention. And that the number of people that were in those 500 groups that could have been reached, from a membership perspective, was over 3.4 million people.
Oh my God.
around the world. So right now, the groups that I've categorized and I interact with, it's about 14 million people who have had the potential to see our message around the world. It grows 50, 25, 50, 100,000 a week, depending on where the message gets shared. Um, and so it's a growing message, and that became our Rock the World. This year we were going to try to figure out a way to be more um, effective and do Rock the World #2 for suicide prevention. And uh, we were having a conversation, and last year in England there was a group called Isla Stones. A young lady who was 7 years old died of a cancerous tumor in her back. And in 2019, her parents set a Guinness World Record for the most number of painted stones displayed in one place in her memory. And we've actually been able to reach out to them and ask this one question, which was, would you give us your blessing to try to break that record for suicide prevention? And fortunately, they gave us their blessing, because if they hadn't, we probably wouldn't be embarking on this. But they did, give us a blessing to try to attempt to break that record. So we have begun to collect painted rocks to attempt to break the record sometime in August of this year. And if we're able to break that record, our hope is to be able to bring those rocks to Washington, D.C. for display on September 10th, 2020, International Suicide Prevention Day. And then once the display is over, we hope to be able to encourage the embassies of the countries that where members donated these rocks to take those rocks either back to their embassy or back to their country to put them back out from where they came. And we plan on contacting the governors of each U.S. state to offer the same. And if the governor's not interested, we'll reach out to the Senate or the House, to see if either of those representatives want them. But our goal is just to raise awareness, and we want to do it not only in our own community, but in every single community around the world, because we say our children are our future. Well, one child we're lost is when I grew up, they used to have this ad that was I heard all the time. A mind is a beautiful thing to waste. It was more on the lines of don't waste your mind doing drugs, but
Right.
that was poignant all the time on the radio and TV. But you don't hear anybody talking about suicide prevention or the impact of suicide, and that's what I believe one of the things are that we need to change. We need to have this type of open dialogue where people like yourself can say, "I'm a survivor. I'm not alone.
Right.
I'm no longer I never no longer feel alone, and therefore, because I don't feel alone, hopefully the next thought is I don't need to walk through that door anymore,
Yeah,
because there's somebody else like me."
absolutely. That is absolutely incredible. Well, you've got my vote and my whatever I can do to help with these rocks, because they're amazing, and I'm a huge supporter, and I don't want to say fan, because I don't think that's the right word. I'm a huge supporter of your foundation, and I'm constantly in contact with Josh about it, because I'm just like trying to do everything I can, because this is just, it's amazing, and how far you have come in the past 18 months is just, God, it's a blessing. It really
Yeah,
is.
yeah, it
It's
is. And that you mentioned a couple times that there's all kind of different ways to give. I mean, really, this program is not only art therapy; it's our outreach. We take it to communities in our regional area: Maryland, Delaware, Virginia. Um, we take it to colleges. We'll take it to high schools. Anybody who
Yes.
wants, if we can arrange it to get it there. And when we do that, we bring the rocks, we bring the paints, paint brushes or the paint pens, and you know, we have allowed people to take those rocks with them, create a garden locally or to give them back to us, and we'll distribute them at different events and when we're traveling. One of the goals for that program is to somewhere day in the future be able to obtain a uh, RV, self-driving or drivable RV, and be able to take this program on the road and just have volunteers take the RV from state to state to state, across the U.S. and take it to their communities. And uh, because what we find is when we set up at an event, the children want to come and paint. If the kids want to paint rocks, why not, right?
Right.
But the parents come by, the kids paint the rocks. Sometimes the parents paint the rocks with them. Um, but we always get an opportunity to have a conversation about awareness and prevention with the parents, and that's what it's about.
Right.
That's the outreach part of it. The other thing is we have a pledge out on our website. Take the pledge against removing the stigma of seeking mental health help. There's we all know it's there. It prevents people from getting help when they need it because they don't want to be stigmatized. So we want people to pledge and raise awareness on that. And then we also have a project that Josh came up with, called the Angel Project, and that is on our website. You can go out and upload the photo of someone that you've lost due to suicide, um, and their birth and angel date, and a brief bio about who they were, why they were special, those type of things, and they stay up, and somebody gets highlighted each week. Um, Eventually, it'll probably be every day or multiple a day if it grows big enough. But our goal with that is to have a mobile monument to take along beside those suicide prevention rocks. I have a concept design for a vehicle being built, with uh, televisions on the outside, so that these pictures of our loved ones just continue to scroll by, and people can go in and read their stuff inside that, their bios inside the truck, and get counseling or information on awareness and prevention, how they can get more involved, um, to make a difference. And our goal there would be to eventually have a national monument to suicide loss, because in America, in the year my son passed, it was 47,000, one every 12 and a half minutes. It's since dropped down to one every 11 minutes. Around the world, it's one every 40 seconds, which just astounding. That's almost 800,000 lives around the world lost to suicide each year. For every loss, research shows that about 100 people are impacted. So, you do the math, 800,000 times 100, that's 8 million people that have are directly affected by a suicidal loss each year. And, the numbers are staggering when you think about how many attempts there are, because I think it's like a 3-to-1 ratio of how many attempts there are compared to how many successful, I hate to say successful, but actual, deaths occur. This is not, if this was cancer, there'd be tons of research, there'd be specialized hospitals, there'd be all kind of money being poured into it, but nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to address it in the open, the way it needs to be. And certainly those that are, because you have NAMI, or NAMI, you have
Right.
um, AFSP, you have some big research organizations, and that is critical. The knowledge part is critical to preventing it in the future. But I also, having lived through this, believe that it can't be just a research issue. It can't be just a medical issue. It can't be families struggling alone in the dark. It has to be a grassroots effort, because we all have to connect with people. That connection. We always like to say, connect, recognize, and act. You
Right.
have to have a personal connection with people. Um, that's what gives you the opportunity to recognize that that individual is hurting, and then you have to have the knowledge to actually be able to act. You have to know when to act, how to make sure that that person feels comfortable opening up and saying, "Hey, I'm hurting." Um, I actually quit my government job and moved to teach ROTC in a high school about a year ago,
Hmm.
uh, so I could be closer to kids. And where I teach, I've already had 3 or 4 children come to me, and I've been there just a year
Oh
uh,
my gosh.
with either self harm or suicide having attempted, and they're just admitting that they have or that they're feeling that way. Actually, it's probably closer to 10 now that I think about it, because um, I've had several children say that they have attempted in the past. Um, and that's just in one school,
Yeah.
and I'm able to get them some help. We paint rocks in our classroom.
That's
I
awesome.
keep mentioning, it's it all comes back around. It's just my whole life has changed, and is dedicated to suicide prevention. And the crazy thing is too, being an accountant, I am fairly shy, conservative. I'm not a salesperson, never have been. But having lost and don't want anybody else to lose, I've somehow managed to transform into this person um, who will ask any question that needs to be asked, because the worst somebody can tell me is no,
Right.
and it doesn't hurt me. So, I'm there to make a difference. So, if you were to meet me on the streets at some point, you'd probably find out that this is what I do.
I God bless you for doing it. This is I do. I really years ago I would have been mad at God and blaming him for everything, but now in this part of my life I'm so thankful for just little things, and I truly believe that he's blessing you in so many different ways, and this is amazing. I thank you so much for being on here today and for sharing such a personal part of your life and for creating such a huge impact on so many people. So many people. I know it's touched me. I don't even remember how I found you guys. I just know that as soon as I did, it was like immediate contact. I had to talk to somebody. I had to get involved somehow. Um, so for
Well, I'm so glad you did.
me too, and I'm gonna meet you in person soon because you're not that far away, and I got to make it happen. So I definitely want to be, um, I want to do more for you guys, and so we'll talk about that another time. But for everyone else listening, you go to joshuayorkfoundation.org. There's so many different ways to give back. Um, you take a look at all those pictures and hopefully you'll be inspired and also participate on your own because these are making a huge difference and you just never know who you're going to impact. But thank you so much, Mr. York. I truly appreciate this, and I can't wait to see um, what else you're going to do. I can't wait to see you impact more people because this is huge, and this is really it. Just my heart is just completely touched by it.
Well, I thank you, and I, I could hear you tearing up a couple times as we talked, but I would tell you, for me, knowing that I impacted you is enough, uh, because it takes an entire choir of people talking. Alone I can only impact so many people, but with 27,000 people around me and that number growing, we as a choir can really reach so many more people. And I honestly thank you from the bottom of my heart in joining the choir.
Absolutely. Whatever I can do. Thank you so much. I will talk to you soon and meet you soon.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye. Thank you for listening to the Truths We Hide podcast, created by A Wild Ride Called Life. To find out more about our mission, visit www.awildridecalledlife.com.